Hello and thanks for joining me for another video. This is Zoe from makeitcrafty.com, and in this video I will be colouring Scootin Witch from the new Halloween 2014 collection. I had initially planned to create a speed colouring video whilst I coloured the image for the store, and so I didn't do any talking whilst colouring, and then the dreaded ink blob. After the initial shock, I thought, well, maybe there's a lesson in the video after all. So I share how I try my best to save the image, and I think it didn't turn out too bad. I'll speed up the colouring until the big accident and then pop back in to try and explain what I was doing to fix it. Okay, so I'm just about to finish up, and I go and grab my BG49 to start her goggles, and there it is, the blob. Oh my goodness. So I quickly grab a baby wipe, which is right next to me. It's just a dry thing. I grabbed it, the closest cloth that was near me, just to try and get some of that ink that was sitting on the surface. I don't know if that was a mistake because it seemed to spread it, or whether that helped in the end. I have no idea, but I'm just running with it. So I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Okay, let's just try and fix this. At least I can show how to try and fix a big blob. So I quickly grabbed my colourless blender, and all I could think of doing was try and push that ink off her face, because I didn't care too much about her hair because that's dark anyway, and of course I was going to do her goggles green, so, or the aqua or whatever. So my main concern was try and get as much of the colour off the skin. So essentially what I'm doing, and as you see my fingers there, I'm trying to dry it off, and then I grab the baby wipe, and I'm just trying to keep that paper dry while I work it. And the reason that I do that is that whilst it's dry, when it dries, you can then saturate the paper again with the alcohol to try and pick up more of that colour. So I've turned it over to try and pick up more of that colour on the baby wipe. So what I'm trying to do is spread the pigment, to actually spread the colour and thin it out, so that I can then go back over the top of it with my skin tones. I think I decide, yes, this is where I decide that I'm going to use the baby wipe as like a blotting paper, and I'm hoping that by saturating that section of the paper with the alcohol, that the colour will get absorbed through the other side of the paper, and then allowing me to push more of that colour through and onto the baby wipe essentially. I think I was at the point here, I was like, I'm going to push this ink through, so I'm like really pressing hard with the nib. And then I'm just trying to dry the surface as well. One thing to note when you're colouring with Copic markers, if something like this happens, if you've got a good quality paper, and by that I mean a nice thick paper that's smooth, it means that the fibres are really close together and they can absorb a lot more ink. So if mistakes like this happen, you've got more of a chance to try and push that pigment either into the dark line, which is what I'm trying to do here at the moment, or try and pushing it through and spreading it on the other side of the paper before you put your other color over the top. I just thought that I would just try and absorb some of the color here as well, but I did plan to do a background anyway, so that will hide most of my mistake there. Now the other thing too is you want to wait for these areas to dry before you do too much more work on them. You'll see now I decide to color in the rest of her broom whilst I wait for the alcohol area to dry. Then I can see how much more work I might need to do if I need to do anything. And you can already see how as it's drying up on her face, it's starting to lighten. So it's not too bad. And I think I do come in and do a little bit more work on it before I add the skin over the top. But we'll just finish up colouring the broom. And then get back to fixing up the big ink blob. I couldn't believe it. Alright, so I come in again with I'm just checking there to see how dry it is. Then I come in and I'm going to give it one more go and try and push it through. And I'm just spreading it that little bit further just to thin it out. And I'm really concentrating, as you can see, on the skin areas, and I'm sort of pushing it towards the hair because I'm going to be going back over that with grey anyway. I'm just trying to dry it off a bit. Then again near the shoe. You see that when that dried, it still had that just that bit more of an edge there, and I wanted to try and push it into that black line. So essentially when you're using a lighter colour, much easier. And reds are always very difficult. Oh, nightmare. But still worth trying. And it depends on what colour you're going to be putting over the top. So don't think that if you're using a red and you're going to be putting a yellow or an orange or even a skin tone or something over the top, you can generally hide that red blob, unless it's, something like, I don't know, an R89 or something. Then you might need to consider starting again. But yeah, so just try and push it towards that line, or try and put something underneath to try and soak that colour right through. So now I've just gone in with my greys to fix up the hair. And I actually use a W7, and then I use the W2 there just to take a little bit of that colour off to give it a little bit of a highlight, but not too much. Just so it wasn't too flat. So I'm using a YR01 there. And then I do end up going darker with the skin than it was initially, but it doesn't look out of place. So I think it looks okay in the end. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It does have a little bit of a muddy look because you've got that greenish tinge behind it. As an afterthought, I thought I should have maybe put like a yellow over the top of the green first to help warm up the green before I put the skin tone on. I'm not sure if that would have helped. I could have maybe even put it on afterwards to try and get rid of that muddy appearance. But maybe I'm going too far anyway. I think what I ended up with is not too bad, and I doubt that many people are going to notice it. And that's one thing to remember with your colouring and any mistakes that you think that you've made. Of course, you can see the mistake, and it's very unlikely that someone else is going to pick up your mistake. as that dries, that does become a bit lighter. So I'm just preparing the marker actually off camera. I'm going back to the BG49, and so I'm wiping everything off to try and make sure that I'm not going to get another blob. And then I just add some yellow just over the glasses part to give it a bit of a shine. And so I'll leave you here. As you can see, I think that it's passable. I think that we managed to fix it, and you know, you should give it a try too. If you next time you get an ink blob, at least have a try. You just never know. Don't throw it away straight away. And yeah, at least you can have a practice. Get something that you can absorb it with. So maybe keep, you know, some paper towel or something handy so that you've got something that's absorbent. I think if I went straight to putting the baby wipe directly underneath and trying to push that color through so that it could absorb it, I think that would have been a better way to do it. Here I've just started the background, so I'm going to stop talking now, and you can watch me do my little messy background thing that I'm doing, and that will help to hide that other little blob that I've happened. And yeah, I hope you managed to grab a couple of tips or two, and we'll try and fix any mistakes that that might happen. Fingers crossed there's no ink blobs for you. Alrighty, thanks for watching, and I'll let you finish watching this, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Thank you.